I'm John Batchelor. This is the John Batchelor Show. Good evening. Jason Bourne on the run. This time, his name is Snowden. This time, we have very few things confirmed about Mr. Snowden. Very few. The pieces do not fit together. I'm not going to attempt to come up with one whole explanation of the events of these last days. However, Eli Lake joins me from the Daily Beast Newsweek, and Eli is reporting of a Q group. Q group is looking for Mr. Snowden, has been looking for some days, prior to the revelations of the last 48 hours, perhaps, prior to the publication of information we believe Mr. Snowden purloined from Booz Allen Hamilton, a contractor for the NSA, perhaps. Eli, a very good evening to you. I accuse you of making this up. What the heck is the Q Group? Good evening, Eli.
The Q Group is one name for the NSA's Associate Directorate for Security and Counterintelligence, and the directorates and offices of the NSA are often given a letter, and the Q Group is one name for it, but I would say the official names for these things are constantly changing, but it's known colloquially as the Q Group among the kind of fraternity of the former and current NSA officials.
The Q Group is looking for Mr. Snowden. Do we know how long they've been looking for him?
They've been looking for him since mid-May when he originally sort of went away. He had medical leave. He said he was going to Hong Kong for his epilepsy. At that point, though, once he sort of vacated his home and sort of went missing, at that point, the NSA began to realize something was up. And by the time we saw the disclosures in The Guardian and The Washington Post, he was the leading suspect as the leaker.
We bump along with what we know about Jason Snowden, 29 years old. For example, in conversation with reporters, and Bloomberg is reporting, his mother is a clerk for Maryland's federal court. His father, retired Coast Guard. They separated and divorced some years ago. Mr. Snowden did not graduate from high school. In fact, he might have only attended 2 or 3 semesters of high school. He lived for a time alone in a co-op, a condominium, purchased or possessed by his mother in Ellicott City, Maryland. We do not believe he has any graduate degree. But here, Eli, I've not been able to establish that claim of his that he worked for the CIA either as a contractor or as an agent. Nor, as of now, have I been able to establish, nor could Bloomberg, that he was in the Army. The Army will not comment, either yay or nay, which is unusual. Have you been able to establish his CIA claim? Have you seen anybody confirm that, Eli?
I have been working on different elements of the story and haven't really reported out that particular fact. What I can tell you, though, is I don't know what to make of it. I mean, he has made these claims,
yes,
and right now they're not being confirmed, but it is also, the CIA is an intelligence agency. They don't confirm the identities of people who work for them often. The Army, I think, would be different, and, we'll see as we learn more. But I think that it's a mistake to make too much of the fact that he did not graduate from high school, because he's clearly very bright, and I think that, at least, we do know that he works for Booz Allen Hamilton on these issues, and I think that he got these jobs because he showed a kind of aptitude, for understanding these kinds of classified systems, and that is, I think, fits a lot of people, especially in the Internet era, where you have a lot of people who are very good at, the kind of architecture of the Internet and architecture of computer science and the applications and so forth that may not have aptitudes for other things.
A couple of details, Eli. I want to go over the details that I've developed in talking to reporters, and Bloomberg is reporting his salary at Booz Allen Hamilton, which the detail is that he joined in late March, so 3 months at Booz Allen Hamilton was $122,000, based in Hawaii. He said he used the number 200,000 in the videotape. That bothers me. That's quite a discrepancy.
It could also be explained by the fact that he was getting overtime and other kinds of, pay. The way that you get paid, especially when you work as a contractor or for the federal government, is that there's all kinds of ways in which you can sort of game the system. So when you can get overtime, you can get different gradations of pay depending on where you're stationed to reflect, where you have to go and, things like that.
He also now has been fired from Booz Allen Hamilton. That report was made today. What we're looking for here are inconsistencies or consistencies, and I've not found either in your reporting from the Q group that's looking for Mr. Snowden. Are they now bothered by inconsistencies in his biography? I mean, they did the hire. Have they been Booz Allen Hamilton did the hire, presumably with the NSA's oversight. Are there inconsistencies that they're mentioning?
Well, the way it was explained to me is that, that he did in fact work for the CIA, and the CIA vetted him, and the NSA and the CIA have very similar high standards for who is vetted, and they usually accept CIA clearances in their process, at least for sort of what would have been a fairly low-level access job, apparently. The question is, how did a low-level access guy get access to such, damaging information?
So quickly.
And it strikes me that there may be other sources here, and they may be using these kinds of, internet dead drops, lockbox technology, and the public face could be the Snowden guy, but there could be other people who are still kind of deeply buried in the system, but have become very good, as you would expect a cryptologist would be, at cloaking their movements on the internet from the all-seeing Big Brother.
Eli, I don't want to get ahead of your reporting, but right now, because we're working in a fog, we're going very carefully here. Booz Allen Hamilton has said that he's separated. Is there any reason to believe that he was under suspicion before he fled? That there was some element in his conduct over the last 3 months that tripped a wire?
Well, I think I haven't gotten really there yet, but I mean, listen, what we know is that he's been in contact, and that's a very important point, with at least this filmmaker who has worked with, I think, The Guardian and The Washington Post, and it looks like also Glenn Greenwald. So we know that he's had a relationship, and he says himself that he has been building this has been building up for like 3 years.
Right.
But one of the things you talk to when you talk to people who are kind of in this world is that there's something about his story that doesn't add up. He seems to have had access to like incredible programs and things in the intelligence world, at a very young age, and that's extremely rare. That does happen, by the way, when you talk to people, especially young people who have security clearances. They will sometimes try to exaggerate, the level of access they have, among friends that they trust. But and that may be what we're seeing here with Snowden. But at least in terms of the documents that he was able to get, they were highly classified. And I mean, I personally don't believe Clapper in this particular instance, but Clapper, the head of the intelligence community, James Clapper, director of national intelligence, says it was literally a gut-wrenching feeling. He felt it was one of the gravest breaches you've ever seen.
The Q group, it's looking for Snowden. Snowden appeared in a Hong Kong hotel. We're now told that he's changed his residence in Hong Kong. They know where he is, right? Does that mean they can go to Hong Kong and talk to him? Do we know how they work? Do they have an exchange program with Chinese security?
Well, the interesting point here, I think, is that China and the United States are certainly, they're in many ways very close trading partners. I wouldn't say that they're allies by any stretch, but they're not at war. But there is a kind of cyber war between China and the United States, and one could say, by extension, intelligence war in some degree. And there's a lot of history there that we know about. And in that respect, the freedom of movement the United States would have in a city like Dubai, where the government is allies, or for that matter, a city like Amman or a city like Tel Aviv, where there would be some degree of freedom of movement for the CIA, that does not exist in Hong Kong, which is China. And if they were to do a kind of extradition operation to find him, they would be doing so almost certainly over the wishes of the Chinese government. I can't imagine the Chinese would allow. They may not grant Snowden extradition. They may. I don't know if he's trying to defect or something like that. But certainly, at the same time, I doubt that they would ever approve a CIA operation to go grab him.
Eli Lake, reporting for the Daily Beast, reporting very carefully. Follow Eli's story now. He's telling us that Smiley, that's us, does not have a working relationship with Carla, that's them. Snowden in Hong Kong. I'm John Batchelor.